Curiosity drives learning, but adaptability determines whether that learning translates into effective action. In a landscape where AI capabilities and business applications evolve continuously, adaptability is not optional. It's essential for sustained leadership effectiveness. This lesson focuses on developing personal and organizational adaptability that thrives amid ongoing technological evolution. Adaptability means more than just accepting change. It means thriving through it, adjusting your thinking, approaches, and strategies as circumstances evolve while maintaining core purpose and values. As management theorist Peter Drucker observed, the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence itself, but to act with yesterday's logic. This captures the essence of what adaptability addresses, our tendency to rely on familiar patterns, even when contexts have shifted. For AI leadership, adaptability involves several capabilities: updating mental models, your understanding of what AI can do, how it creates value, and what approaches work needs to evolve as technology and experience advance. Holding too tightly to initial understanding prevents you from recognizing new possibilities or learning from outcomes that don't match expectations. Adjusting strategies. Strategies that worked when AI capabilities were more limited may need revision as capabilities expand. Being willing to reconsider and adjust approach matters more than defending original plans. Experimenting and learning. Adaptable leaders treat AI initiatives as experiments that generate learning, not just successes or failures. When outcomes don't match predictions, adaptable response is what can we learn, not who's to blame. Letting go of what's not working. Sometimes AI initiatives that seem promising don't deliver expected value. Adaptability includes willingness to acknowledge this and redirect resources rather than persisting with struggling initiatives, and embracing productive discomfort. Change creates discomfort. Adaptable leaders don't eliminate discomfort, but distinguish productive discomfort of growth from destructive discomfort of poor direction. Let's talk about why adaptability is challenging. Several factors make adaptability difficult: commitment and consistency pressure. Once you've committed to a direction, there's pressure to stay consistent. Changing course can feel like admitting error or lacking conviction. But as economist John Maynard Keynes reportedly said when questioned about changing his position, "When the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do?" Distinguishing between valuable consistency and stubborn inflexibility is essential for adaptability. Success can reduce adaptability. Approaches that succeeded previously create confidence, sometimes overconfidence, that they'll continue working. Stanford professor Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset reveals that people who view capabilities as fixed struggle more with change than those who view capabilities as developable. This applies to organizations. Success can create fixed mindset about how we do things that reduces adaptability. Sunk cost trap. Resources already invested in current approaches create psychological attachment that resists change. We've already spent 6 months on this implementation. Becomes reason to continue even when evidence suggests different direction would serve better. Identity and expertise. Your expertise and identity as a leader may be tied to particular approaches. Adapting can feel like undermining your own credibility. And organizational inertia. Larger organizations develop momentum and structures that resist change. Adaptability requires working with and through this inertia, not just willing personal change. So we want to think about how to develop adaptability as a personal capability. For starters, Cultivate intellectual humility. Recognize that your current understanding, however well informed, is still incomplete and provisional. As physicist Richard Feynman noted, I would rather have questions that cannot be answered than questions that can't be questioned. This intellectual humility creates space for adaptation. Practice saying, I don't know, when you don't know. I was wrong about that when evidence shows it. And I've changed my thinking on this because when circumstances warrant. This models that changing your mind based on evidence is strength, not weakness. Separate identity from positions. Don't tie your identity to specific beliefs about AI or particular strategic positions. Your identity is as a leader who makes good decisions based on best available information, not as someone who is right about a specific prediction or committed to a particular approach. This separation makes it easier to adapt when circumstances change. Build comfort with experimentation. Frame AI initiatives as experiments designed to test hypotheses and generate learning, not just as implementations expected to succeed. This experimental mindset makes adaptation natural. Experiments that don't work provide valuable information about what to try next. MIT professor Ed Schein, who studied organizational learning, emphasized that learning only happens when you're willing to take risks, and risk-taking requires a culture that doesn't punish failure. Creating this for yourself and your team enables adaptability. Practice small adaptations. Build adaptability muscle through small changes in low-stakes situations. Adjust meeting formats based on what's working. Modify communication approaches when current ones aren't landing. Shift priorities when circumstances change. These small adaptations build capacity for larger strategic adaptations. Develop decision reversibility where possible. Make decisions that are reversible rather than permanent. Start with pilots rather than full deployments. Build in review points where you'll reassess rather than committing irrevocably. Knowing you can adjust course makes initial decisions easier and enables adaptation as you learn. Create reflection practices. Regular reflection on what's working and what's not supports adaptation. This might be weekly reviews where you ask yourself, what did I learn this week about AI in our organization? What should we be doing differently based on this? Without structured reflection, insights stay implicit and don't translate into adaptation. There are several frameworks that support adaptability. There's the build, measure, learn loop, borrowed from lean startup methodology. This loop applies to AI initiatives. Build, implement something small to test a hypothesis. Measure, collect data about how it's working. Learn, draw insights about what to do next. Repeat, build the next iteration based on learning. This loop builds adaptation into your process rather than treating it as an exception. Pre-mortem analyses. Before major AI initiatives, conduct pre-mortems. Imagine the initiative has failed and work backward to identify what could go wrong. This surfaces potential problems while there's still time to adapt, design, or approach, rather than discovering them after failure. Decision triggers. When making strategic decisions about AI, establish specific triggers that would lead you to reconsider. We'll proceed with this AI implementation. We'll reassess if customer satisfaction drops below X, if costs exceed Y, or if bias metrics show Z. Triggers make adaptation systematic rather than reactive. And multiple hypotheses. Rather than committing to single explanation for how AI will create value, maintain multiple hypotheses. This AI might improve efficiency, or it might improve quality, or both, or neither, but provide unexpected benefits. Multiple hypotheses keep you alert to diverse evidence and enable faster adaptation than single hypothesis thinking. So consider organizational adaptability building. Your personal adaptability matters, but organizational adaptability determines execution. As we've talked about before, create psychological safety. As Harvard professor Amy Edmondson's research shows, psychological safety, where people feel safe taking risks and admitting mistakes is essential for organizational learning and adaptation. If people fear punishment for bringing bad news or acknowledging that initiatives aren't working, won't get the information needed for adaptation. Be a model in receiving difficult information well. Thank people who raise concerns or share negative results. Distinguish between good processes that produced poor outcomes versus poor processes. Establish learning reviews. Create regular reviews explicitly focused on learning, not just performance evaluation. These reviews ask, what did we learn? What surprised us? What would we do differently? What new questions does this raise? This signals that learning and adaptation are valued alongside execution. Reduce sunk cost thinking. Help your organization distinguish between resources already spent, sunk costs that shouldn't drive future decisions, and forward-looking assessments of best path from here. We've invested 6 months in this approach is backward-looking. Given what we know now, what's the best path forward is adaptive. Celebrate productive pivots. Recognize and reward teams that adapt intelligently based on learning. If only staying the course gets celebrated, adaptation becomes risky politically, even when strategically sound. Build modular architectures. Where possible, design AI systems and strategies modularly so components can be adjusted independently. This makes adaptation less disruptive than if every change requires restructuring everything. Create slack. Organizations running at absolute capacity cannot adapt. There's no room to try new approaches or adjust course. Build slack in budgets, timelines, and team capacity that enables experimentation and adaptation. As technology strategist Nassim Taleb argues, in Anti-Fragile, systems need slack and redundancy to adapt and benefit from change rather than breaking under stress. AI's evolution requires strategic adaptation. Let's talk about a few ways to approach it. Monitor capability shifts. Stay aware of significant shifts in what AI can do. When new capabilities emerge, ask, does this change our strategic options? Should we reconsider approaches that were not feasible before? Watch competitive dynamics. As competitors adopt AI and new AI-enabled competitors emerge, strategic landscape shifts. Adaptation means adjusting your positioning and approach in response. Learn from experience. Your organization's experience with AI initiatives, successes, and failures should inform strategy adaptation. If pilots reveal that customer reception differs from expectations, or that implementation is harder than anticipated, adapt strategy accordingly. Revisit assumptions. Periodically review assumptions underlying your AI strategy, which have proven accurate, which need revision. We assumed data quality was insufficient. Is that still true? Or have data practices improved? We assumed employees would resist AI. Has that played out as expected? Adjust ambition. Sometimes adaptation means becoming more ambitious as capabilities prove stronger than expected. Sometimes it means scaling back as reality proves more difficult. Both directions are legitimate adaptations based on evidence. There are common adaptability mistakes. Several patterns undermine effective adaptation, such as random change. Changing constantly without clear reasoning isn't adaptability. It's instability. Adaptation should be responsive to evidence and reasoning, not just reaction to latest information or pressure. Overthinking before acting. Waiting for perfect understanding before adapting means adapting too slowly. Balance thoughtful consideration with bias toward action and learning. Adapting form but not substance. Making superficial changes while maintaining problematic core approaches is not true adaptation. Sometimes adaptation requires fundamental rethinking, not just adjusting tactics. Individual adaptation without organizational alignment. If you adapt your thinking but don't bring your organization along. The gap creates confusion and ineffective execution. Adaptation requires communicating changed thinking and building alignment around new directions, balancing adaptability with stability. Adaptability doesn't mean constant change or lack of conviction. Effective leaders balance adaptation with stability. You take the stable, core, flexible approach. Maintain stable core purpose and values while adapting approaches for achieving them. Example, we're committed to excellent customer service. Remain stable. We'll use AI chatbots for routine inquiries while maintaining human agents for complex issues is adaptable approach. Distinguish between experiments and commitments. Be clear about what's experimental, expected to evolve based on learning, versus committed, stable unless significant evidence warrants change. This prevents confusion about whether everything is perpetually up for revision. Adapt at an appropriate pace. Not every change requires immediate response. Some shifts warrant fast adaptation. Others benefit from deliberate consideration. Develop judgment about when to adapt quickly versus when to observe before acting. Communicate adaptation clearly. When you adapt direction, explain why clearly. For example, based on what we've learned about customer response, we're shifting from X to Y. This prevents adaptation from appearing as inconsistency or a lack of conviction. Developing adaptive resilience. Resilience, the ability to recover from setbacks, supports adaptability. Reframe setbacks. View AI initiatives that don't succeed as learning opportunities rather than failures. This reframing makes setbacks less threatening and adaptation more natural. Maintain perspective. Individual setbacks don't define overall trajectory. As computer scientist Alan Kay observed, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. Maintaining longer-term perspective helps you weather short-term difficulties while adapting appropriately. Build support networks. Connect with other leaders navigating similar challenges. Shared experience and peer support build resilience through difficult adaptations. Take care of yourself. Continuous adaptation is demanding. Maintain practices that sustain your energy and effectiveness. Exercise, sleep, relationships, activities that restore you. Burnout undermines adaptability by depleting capacity for thoughtful response. Well, there are some practical adaptability exercises to consider. There's the monthly review. Once a month, review what's working better than expected, what's working worse than expected. How about different than expected? What should we adapt based on this? The assumption audit. Quarterly, list key assumptions underlying your AI strategy. Rate confidence in each. Identify which need retesting. The pivot practice. Deliberately practice small pivots in low-stakes situations to build comfort with changing direction. The learning debrief. After any significant AI initiative or outcome, conduct structured debrief. What did we expect? What happened? What explains the difference? What will we do differently? The perspective shift. Regularly ask someone with different perspective. What am I not seeing? What should we be doing differently? Adaptability is not abandoning conviction or changing direction randomly. It's responding intelligently to evidence, learning from experience, and adjusting approach as circumstances evolve while maintaining core purpose. As Charles Darwin's work demonstrated, it's not the strongest or most intelligent who survive and thrive, but those most responsive to change. This applies to leadership in technological evolution as much as biological. The practices in this lesson give you concrete ways to build personal and organizational adaptability that enables sustained effectiveness through AI's continuous evolution. In the next lesson, we'll explore reflective learning practices, the systematic approaches to extracting insights from experience that inform future decisions and continuous improvement.